Okay, welcome back everybody to Authors Vox. Our second episode is with Sean from Shift Point, the author of The Sanity Thief, this wonderful novel dealing with things like mental health and overcoming certain aspects. Sean, can we get you to introduce yourself here on Authors Vox, please?
Absolutely. First and foremost, Nick, I just want to say thank you for inviting me onto the podcast today. Authors Box is an amazing platform that you created, and I really want to make sure that you get appreciated for giving independent authors this place to come and speak and talk about their work. And definitely endless appreciation for you. Thank you, brother, for having me on the
Oh,
show. My name
thank you
is
so much, my
Sean.
friend.
Yeah, no worries, brother. My name is Sean Seurattan. I am the author and one of the collaborators on The Sanity Thief, which is the first volume of our Seeker series, being put forth by Point Shift. And yeah, like you mentioned, it is, in a nutshell, a really easy way and a light way to start having difficult conversations with yourself. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where we wanted to be the entry point for people.
Fantastic. I read it myself. My partner read it. We both loved it. We thought it was fantastic. We thought it was very
Great.
interesting and really kind of put us into a certain mindset. But before we jump into that, I ask everybody who's on the pod for the first time the exact same question, and that's magic systems. Now we're going to change this to power systems in honor of comic books today. But do you have a favorite power system? It can come from comics, TV, movies, books, whatever.
This is an awesome question. And as a fellow high nerd council member, of which I'm sure you are, there
Absolutely.
is a range of things to choose from. So, but for me, my favorite magic system, I want to go back to magic system because I think that actually works. But my favorite magic system isn't necessarily from my favorite franchise, but I just think that that particular magic system really speaks to the way that I think that that kind of extraordinary ability comes from in these fantasy and sci-fi worlds. I don't know if you've ever heard of a book series or a show called The Magicians. Have you ever heard of
I
this
have
before?
not. No, I
Okay.
have not.
It was a show on Showcase for a little while. It had like I think about 2 or 3 seasons, and it was originated from a book series. Um, and the concept of magic in that series is that magic is kind of like a resource, as like air or like water or like energy. So like
Mhm.
all of these things, it's a pool of resource, and certain people are a conduit to it. Some people are not a conduit to it, but it is always something that you are tapping into. You know what I mean? And I really always liked that particular kind of concept of magic and power and things like that. You're not really creating it. You're not really able to destroy it. You're just merely kind of converting it and changing it into what you need. Similar also to the concept in Wheel of Time. Have you watched
Mhm.
Wheel of Time or read Wheel of Time?
I am on book 4 of the Wheel of Time, and it is taking me a little longer than I like to think, but yeah, the
It's
Sidar,
empty.
Sidene. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. I
Yes,
get you.
yes. You're conduits for a greater pool of something. And that to me is my
Mhm.
favorite stuff because I feel like in general, we are insignificant, but we can do significant things if we tap into the right energy.
I think that's an excellent answer. I think that's a very and honestly, it also reminds me of, the Green Lantern comic series where we're tapping into the emotional spectrum, which is by far one of my
Absolutely.
favorites.
Absolutely.
Um
Me too. Green Lantern's one of my favorites. See, I knew we
Oh,
were going to be friends
so
real
good.
quick.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. Awesome. I love Green Lantern. I also saw you, shared a scene from X-Men '97, season 2 the other day, and I was like, "This dude gets
Absolute
it."
cinema.
What a
Absolute
great
cinema.
show. Oh,
Fantastic.
alright, let's jump right
Fantastic.
into
Yeah,
it.
we could do a whole podcast just about comics for sure.
Absolutely.
'Cause
Yeah.
like I
Oh
said,
god.
I am a high order nerd, so I can speak
Oh,
all of the nerd languages.
thank God.
Hopefully, you
You
even
need to
caught
be.
some of my music for when I posted our podcast today. I was using some very specific Lord of the Rings music in that one too. So I
Oh,
was like, I go down to the smallest detail. And we'll talk about this how I kind of incorporated this nerdiness into the book. There are a lot of Easter eggs that we've hidden throughout the book, and if you are of uh, of of the high order of nerd, you will catch some of these references and tropes and Easter eggs that we've kind of hidden throughout the book to make it fun as well. You know what I mean?
Perfect. Yeah, and you know what? Like I said, I love it. I love the even the cover has the comic book authority and the price and everything. I think it was a genius touch. I thought it was great. But
I
let's jump
love
right
it.
in.
I love it.
So for me, like I said, I've read a lot of comics. It's one of my fortes and one of the things I'm passionate about. But the Seeker series is definitely one of the more not definitely one of the more it is the most unique comic book I've ever read. And was there a specific reason that the three of you, your collaborators and yourself, chose to go with the comic book format over a traditional novel?
Yes. So that was a very that was actually probably the key point in building this story. Me, my co-collaborators, Lauren Jeffrey and Jerome Cabinatin. Lauren Jeffrey is kind of like our Stan Lee. She's where we're getting all of these concepts from. She is a registered psychotherapist, so she's got the certification and documentation to back all of this stuff up. So we kind of, and I was partnered with her, and I kind of tried to figure out a way that we could make some of this a little bit easier to approach because a lot of it can be very tough, and just mental health in general, seeking mental health help in general is stigmatized. So
Mhm.
I really thought that there would be an easier way to do this, a more palatable way to absorb some of this information and some of this change. And I thought initially, well, this book for this volume is called The Sanity Thief, and the Sanity Thief is really a personification of imposter syndrome. I don't know if you're familiar or heard of imposter syndrome. You
Oh
may
yeah.
have heard it somewhere around, but it's basically just that feeling of inadequacy, those internal negative questions: Do I belong here? Do I deserve this? Was that success a fluke? Are they going to find out that I really don't know what I'm doing? All of those kind of questions that make you doubt yourself. I said, why don't we make this into an actual antagonist? And
Hmm.
right from there, as soon as that started to click, my comic book brain just went click, 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 like Legos on top of each other, and I knew exactly where to go. I've been a huge fan of comics for almost my significant life.
Hmm.
So I just knew what I how to do this, and I thought that this was a good thing to do it with. And then luckily, I was able to connect with our artist Jerome, and once we kind of explained the concept to him, it was just like he was like,
Hmm.
I'm on board with this. I'm with this. You know what I mean? So then it was just a giant co-collaboration. This book is truly a testament to collaboration and the multiculturalism of our city and just the connectedness and being open to the universe providing you opportunities and being conscious enough to see them and grasp at them when you can. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
that's kind of where it came from. But we did very specifically choose this format for that reason, so that it would be more palatable and a little bit more accessible, as opposed to here, take this novel and fix yourself, the kind of thing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Which
Yeah.
is tough. It's a big ask.
Yeah, and I think and in that you also kind of answered a different question I had in that with our growing literacy crisis that's going on, especially here in Ontario and in Canada specifically.
Yes, we are fellow Ontarians. Big up.
Yes, yes, we are absolutely.
Yeah.
I was going to
Best
ask,
place to be. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
I totally agree, especially right now. I was going to ask the nature of the comic book definitely appeals to all ages, but
Mhm.
specifically adolescents in this regard. And with the talk about it being palatable, was the concept of having more for adolescents, young adults, sorry, teenagers, and really anyone. Did that come to mind when creating this, especially because it's so interactive, and
It's meant to
and
be
I
by
don't know
design.
if yeah, if anyone else can see this, I don't know if you can, but there's blank pages for the reader to interact with, which to me is huge. I think that was
Yes.
fantastic.
Yes.
Um, was that forefront in the mind, the idea of adolescents having access to this as well?
That's an excellent question. And I think that's something that we didn't start off with in mind because we thought a lot of these issues, a lot of the applications of where imposter syndrome strikes hardest were in more adult situations. and kind of we were thinking of it in like workplace environments, but also obviously personal life environments. And we initially thought that this would be most helpful to adults because they would be the ones who could easily apply some of the work that you were just showing in our workbook. But the format lent itself towards a younger audience. And we saw that, you know what, maybe this isn't a bad thing because if we can help some of these people who are now develop with some of these things in mind, they won't have to do this work later as adults. It will be less. So we leaned into it. You know what I mean? So we said,
Mhm.
you know what, this is something that we think can benefit adults. While we initially thought that adults would be the prime demographic, really, I think everybody, like you mentioned, can benefit from this just in everyday life, in every situation, because it's really about making yourself better. And everybody can try and do that at every reasonable age. And I think that kind of YA demographic, high school, transitioning into university, college, secondary, post secondary kind of area, it's a good place for these people to kind of absorb some of this. And it's a easy language to speak. Everybody speaks superhero. Everybody
Mhm.
understands comics as opposed to 20 years ago when you and I maybe first started. You know what I mean? Or even earlier, you know. So
Absolutely.
it's a different world now. So I think it is much more acceptable on many more levels. You'll get the old school nerds like you and I who can go back to way back before the internet, or you can catch on
Mhm.
to these younger guys who are just kind of picking this stuff up as like, wow, this stuff is also very cool, you know?
Absolutely. And as I'm myself, I'm a high school teacher, and it
Oh,
is something that we
very
see.
cool. Your
Yeah,
feedback is very important to us. I'm more honored that you've given us such a high ranking, brother. Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it.
I
Appreciate it.
I would bring this into a classroom because I feel like there is
Wow.
definitely a lot for
Wow.
students to
Okay.
learn from. Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
crying. You're crying. I'm not crying. You're
So you
crying.
know what? Hey, let it flow, man. All I'm saying.
Mhm, mhm,
Um, for students specifically, especially people who deal with imposter syndrome, we are seeing huge upticks in that in young adults because of the
mhm.
rise, well, social media and the internet and everything.
Yes.
But
This
I did want
manufactured level of acceptance, being of standard of being. It's bizarre to me.
the
But
like
yes, that's
the likes, the comments, the followers, everything just kind of breeds
mm,
that in, and I
yes.
think there's a few very important parts in this, but most notably, if I could find it, there is um where you've listed some of the thoughts that imposter syndrome can lend to, because a lot of people I don't think recognize imposter syndrome
Hmm.
when they're experiencing it. So to kind of put a face to the name of this antagonist that most of us have, I think was a really strong point to make, and a really really important aspect to have in this, because we can all tell, like, comic book villains like the Joker, Green Goblin, Mag
Thanos, all of these
Thanos,
guys.
all
Yeah.
of the all of the big ones, but we can't often name the antagonists on our own.
Hmm.
And doing this, I think, is so so important. But I do want to talk about the art for a second here,
Sure.
because you said it's done by Jerome uh,
Cabinatin.
Cabinatin. Thank you.
Hmm.
Uh, what did that look like? What did that process look like when you two were collaborating on that?
Oh man, it was sublime. It was sublime because, as I can quickly tell, just like you and I, him and I can speak nerd on a very high level.
Hmm.
So, and like I said, I've been into comics as early as I can read. Like my mom taught me to read comics, taught me to read with comic books. You know what I mean? So that was really ever my first entry to anything to do with reading. And yeah, so working with him was sublime because he is an avid comic book creator. He is a fan, not only just an artist. So when we were collaborating and trying to think of the how that process was going to work, it was easy because we both kind of understood the comic book process. I personally had never been on that side, on the creation behind the scenes side, so it was all a wonder to me. And he was an excellent Sherpa on that guide. I called him my comic book Sherpa because he was an excellent guide on that journey. but I kind of
Mhm.
had a bit of an understanding of how the process worked just through my own love and experience. So I knew we had to create a storyboard. And then once we created the storyboard, we could start to fill in some of the story and some of the dialogue and some of the wording and within the panels. And then we started to fine tune it and making sure then we started to add our Easter eggs. And then we caught it, had to also incorporate the work, which is the workbook part of it. So we wanted to make sure that those though also felt immersive. So you'll notice on some of the workbook pages, there's still art splashes, like there's still action happening on some of those workbook pages to keep you engaged. You know what I mean? So it was
Mhm.
all very highly thought out, but the art process was incredible, and we went through a bunch of different variations of it. Just mostly evolving each time. Like the very first one was almost just wireframes. It just looked like wireframes of everyone, and that was cool. And then we kind of built it on wireframes. And we're like, yes, we want this background to look like this, and we want this to kind of explain and emote this for us. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So that was a very, very interesting process, very gratifying. You know what I mean? Because, like I said, I'm always on the other side picking up a comic and wondering how they get all of this onto the page like this. So getting to see behind the scenes was, it didn't feel like work for me, Nick. None of this felt like work. This was a purely passion project. And
Right.
we just knew as soon as there was never ever a struggle for anything. It always presented itself and it was easy to see. It was like maybe we had one or two options of where we could go, but the correct path always presented itself. So again, we just had to be open and aware enough to see it, and it always did. It was never a struggle, and it never felt like work.
That's the best kind of experience, I believe,
Hmm.
especially when writing something like this.
Hmm.
Um, I have 2 more structured questions for you.
Hmm.
However, I do wanna just before we get to those, I just wanna say I'm loving this conversation, and I want to extend, like, an
Excuse me.
open and yeah, an open invitation. I would love to have you back on. I have 3 structured
Sure.
questions. Is there a planned length for the Seeker series? With the addendum that I would love to extend an open invitation for you to come on every time there's a new one so we can discuss
Oh,
it.
thank
Um,
you. I would love
but
to.
y is there a plan for, like, for multiple entries, for multiple, mental health struggles, or is it gonna differ depending on, each one?
Yeah, I mean, this again, I love this question, and I won't be as tight as how Marvel movie spoilers are. I will give away some spoilers, but for the audience, it's for the fans. It's for the fans. Big up the other box fans. But yes, so we do want to kind of make each story a standalone, so that it can work independent of the others. So no matter which volume you decide to pick up, you still can benefit, and you don't necessarily need to have the backstory of the other volumes to complete the work and do the self reflection and self improvement on your own with that individual
Mhm.
thing. But yes, we kind of foreshadowed a little bit that there's going to be more of this by naming it the Seeker series. Um, and yes, we are going to keep tackling mental health issues. For the foreseeable future, this is going to be a trilogy, as all
Amazing.
good stories should be. So,
As they should be,
uh,
yeah.
as they should be. So, our next volume in the trilogy is going. We're maintaining the our protagonist, the Seeker. She is going to be a constant throughout all of the stories, and it's
Mhm,
the reader is going to kind of do their journey and start their conversations through her and through her experiences. Um, the next one is going to be tackling what we call the money elephant. And it's kind of that socio-economic awareness that we all need to have, and the awareness that we all have biases towards these socio and economic determinants. You know what I mean?
mhm,
So really, the moral of that story is going to be better to people, because everybody comes from their own situation. Everybody has their own things that they came from, good and bad, that help form who they are. And if you are aware that they have their experiences because of where they're from and how they grew up and all of those things, you yourself will better be able to understand them and yourself. So the next chapter is going to be kind of talking about that. And then the final chapter oh, sorry. And that chapter is going to be an introduction to our kind of Robin character, or
Mm.
sorry, our Alfred character, our
I was gonna say, speaking my
introduction to Alfred.
language, big Batman
Yeah,
fan. So,
yes. So that story is going to be revolved around the Seeker, and we're going to be
mm,
introducing her Alfred. So we're going to
okay.
be speaking to that. And then the final chapter is we're going to be talking about succession planning and talking about preparing for what happens when you're not around. And we're going to be talking about legacy. Legacy is an important, crucially important thing to me and my family. And I
Mhm,
think we'll talk a little bit about it when we talk about why I got into writing and all of that kind of stuff. But legacy is very, very important to me. And planning for that is super important. And having those conversations with yourself about your own mortality and what you want it to look like when you're not around. Those kinds of things are difficult to broach for everybody. You know what I mean? So
mhm.
we definitely are going to talk about that. And that's where we're going to start maybe introducing a Robin type character, a successor to the Seeker.
That sounds to me phenomenal. I think legacy is something that, I was gonna say legacy is something that I think everyone really struggles with, especially not to be gender specific here, but I feel men in their early 20s to like late 60s are really, really worried about the concept of legacy. So
Yes,
that's an excellent
absolutely.
question.
And it's the
I have
toughest conversation for a lot of them to have. Like we work
mhm,
within the financial industry. So a lot of our point shift, when I say we work within the financial and we speak to a lot of financial advisors and people who handle a lot of money, and that industry is very heavily male dominated.
yeah,
And a lot of those guys have hard times coming to grips with what happens when I'm not around, when I'm not the main character. You know what I'm saying? So
mhm,
and then what happens is there's something happens to them at their desk, they drop at their desk, and everything is left into chaos. Everybody around them is in chaos because they didn't want to do any type of planning. So sad to see that somebody's hard work can happen for go through all this for it to just
mhm,
crumble
gone.
away like sand, like a sandcastle. You know what I mean? The tide just washes and that's it.
Yeah, it is
Hmm.
truly, I think, is something that everyone is so concerned about. We
Hmm.
are running out of time here, and
Okay.
I just want to say before anything else, I would love to do a part two with you where we talk specifically about your background in writing, as
Yes.
well as your
Yes.
influences. That'd be fantastic. We can organize that in the very near future. But
I'm here at your beck
before
and call, sir.
fantastic. Before you go, I have my favorite aspect of this is I'm going to shoot off 10 questions for you, rapid fire. I don't want you to think. I just want you to say either or, okay?
Love
So,
it.
ready?
Let's rock and roll.
All right, first one. Pen and paper or computer writing?
Pen and paper.
Google Docs or Microsoft Word?
Microsoft Word.
Edit as you go or when you're done?
Edit as you go.
Console or PC?
Console.
Nice, good choice. Marvel or DC?
Oof. Oof. These are
Yeah,
fighting words now.
that's the big one.
It's gotta be Marvel. Make mine
Marvel,
Marvel. Make mine
Avengers
Marvel.
or X-Men?
Oof. Another tough one. X-Men.
X-Men's a good one. Physical or ebook?
Physical.
Nice. Serial titles or limited runs?
I would say serial title, but limited run, I like the fact that the story ends. Every good
Mhm.
story, every great story has a good ending. So
Agreed.
you need it.
Uh, Movies or TV shows?
Movies, movies. I grew
Animated
up
or
with
live action?
movies. It was a big thing between me and my mom, and that was it's movies. It's movies. The
Movies?
theater was, yeah, it was always the theater. The
Oh,
theater is an experience. It's an experience. During COVID, the thing I missed the most was going to theaters.
theater. Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel like the
yeah.
theater has not been the same since COVID, though. I feel like the movie
No,
quality has not been the same.
yeah.
Okay, we got two more. Animated or live action?
Animated.
Good choice. Smart. Very, very smart. And then finally, in honor of the Seeker series and the Sanity Thief, Indiana Jones or Lara Croft?
Indiana Jones. There is no other than Henry
There is no
Jones
other.
Jr.
Henry Jones Jr. We named the
Yeah,
dog Indiana. Yeah. I
yeah.
love that movie so much.
Love
Oh,
it, love it, love it. My God,
Sean,
Nick,
it
we
was
actually need to hang out one day and hop
yes,
a
yeah.
couple
Next time I'm in
brews and just
Toronto, I'll let you
nerd out.
know. Yeah.
Please, please, please. We will
Fantastic.
nerd out for a great many hours.
Absolutely.
This was
Sean,
fun. Thank you so
it
much.
was such a pleasure. I'm so thankful that you came on. And like I said, I would love to have a part two with you very, very
Sure.
soon.
Let's do it.
Um,
Let's do it.
yeah,
We have many more things to talk about, and
absolutely we
I
do.
I enjoy articulating it because it brings it to life for me. It brings it to life for me.
Absolutely.
So speak it out into the
Um,
universe, and it will manifest.
Everybody, you should go pick up a copy of The Sanity Thief by
Check it
Point
out.
Shift. It is phenomenal. Follow at vantagepoint .to on Instagram, as well as the Seeker series on Instagram. Sean, thank you so much for joining us. And I look forward to talking to you again.
I do too. Thank you, sir.
All right. Stay magical, my friend.
Peace out.